Hey you, it's true! With a review of the new Kirin. Only now Kirin is no longer a beast, but a lady, as is customary in Evertale. Now this summon quote is promising. Let's see if this Rolotia-like storm unit can back it up in battle with her middle of the road speed of 497.
死の資源精霊の眷属我が名はキリンパパと同じ名前だけどうちの方が何倍も強いし期待しといてよ悪いようにはしねえからさ
A heck of a lot stronger than an off-banner unit, ain't all that high of a benchmark to be fair. Let's check out her active skills. And the first one is called Lightning Bolts. You can see the 2 bolts in the animation when she uses this skill, and it also gives 2 spirit, costs 70 time unit and deals 300% damage to 1 enemy, ignoring damage reduction effects, skin passive skills and counter stance. That's all pretty standard stuff for first skills nowadays, but there is more. She also stuns a random enemy for 100 time units. Kirin also becomes enraged and she will immediately get the next turn if this is the first time this skill has been used while on the battlefield, or if this unit has used any other active skill since this skill was last used. So she is yet another unit that might very well get multiple turns whenever she gets the turn. The enrage increasing her attack by 50% also sets her up nicely for potentially dealing damage right afterwards. Next comes her instant skill Divine Winds, 0 spirit cost, 1 time unit, allies gain 1 spirit, then ally spirit is doubled, enemy spirit is halved, rounded down, and then enemies lose 1 spirit. So not necessarily the complete spirit wipeout that we saw with Dark Cinderella's Spirit Crash, but still nice. Luckily it doesn't end there, otherwise this skill would be kind of meh in this current meta. All allies are also purified and a random enemy is stunned for 100 time units. This instant skill becomes unlocked each time the user damages an enemy with an attack, however it is locked again after each use for 50 time units. Otherwise you could see how this Kirin could get into an endless loop between lightning bolts and divine winds. Speaking of these two, if you combine the skill names, you get divine lightning, and that is actually her third skill, fittingly costing 3 spirit and 100 time units. This one targets all enemies, dealing 100% damage, but each target with 50 or more time units gets dealt 400% damage, 600% if that target has 100 or more time units. Now of course, since this is an attack all skill, skin passive skills and counter stance status effects are ignored, but it also ignores damage reduction effects, which is definitely a nice touch. It doesn't end there, because all non-boss enemies that are hit by this attack and have 1 HP remaining have a 25% chance each to be immediately defeated, ignoring revenge passive skills, revival passive skills, and any passive skills or effects of active skills that would prevent the enemy from being defeated. So a 25% execute skill basically, but only on the units that hit 1 HP after this attack. Honestly, I'm not positive whether healing is taken into account here, but either way this is a bit gimmicky, I would say, especially with just a 25% chance. I feel like this could have been a 50% chance without making that attack all that overpowered. Then again, if she is enraged, dealing 900%, ignoring armor of course is already quite nice. Overall definitely a big upgrade over Giga Rolosha's Giga Time Strike. Her last active skill is called Call the Storm, costing 2 spirit, and it pulls her away from the battlefield to be next in line of reinforcements. If there are no ally reinforcements, adds enough Super Den Moris to the ally team to still pull the user away to reinforcements. This is only usable if the user has used Divine Lightning while on the battlefield. I kind of like that this does not have a condition that she needs to get a kill like the Savage Step Back that we saw on Giga Rolotia. However, this is only usable 5 times per battle, and since the Divine Lightning skill that we just discussed prior is actually only usable once each time this unit is on the battlefield, that means after surviving long enough, she will be strictly bound to her first 2 active skills. Now the Step Back, of course, is not only to unlock her 3rd active skill. Again, there is a lot of good stuff coming in from her passive side as well. The first one is called Lightning Rain and is triggered when she enters the battlefield from allied reinforcements. She stuns 2 random enemies for 150 time units, similar to Giga Rolotia. Then she also purifies all allies, very nice. And then she also grants the ally with the lowest time units the next turn by reducing their current time units to 0. This is also very nice, although the specification of the ally with the lowest time units makes this a bit more, or rather less useful than it could be. The stunning doesn't stop there, because once she survives until after the end of the first turn in which she enters battle, 2 random enemies with less than 150 time units will be stunned for 150 time units. Now this is a bit of a double-edged sword, although I do like that kind of specification. Obviously it would be nicer to hit those low time unit enemies than the ones that are already stunned. On the other hand, maybe those low time unit enemies are low time units because they are stun immune or have stun wards and stuff like that. But yeah, all in all, a very extensive and decent entry skill. One of the best in the game right now. And then we have a nice little callback to the original Kirin here with her 2nd passive called Kirin's Vigor. She has a Vigor and stun armor, meaning she gets 50% damage reduction from attacks if she has 50% or more of max HP, or if any enemy unit has 100 time units or more. She also comes with a Hold Ground, and she cannot fall asleep if there are any water enemies on the battlefield, something we already saw in Napoleon and Dark Lancelot. Additionally though, she cannot be stunned if there are any other storm allies on the battlefield. This one is very nice, and also she has healing for 30% of her max HP each time an ally gets the turn. So all in all, what can be said about this new Kirin? She is definitely a very strong entry unit. I think she might even have the best entry passive in the entire game right now, although I would have to fact check myself on that. She is really reminiscent of the old Giga Rolotia, who was also a kind of purifier stun support, and similarly to Storm Rolotia, this Storm Kirin is also very useful at 1 copy. None of the actives and passives even have any kind of awakening scaling, it's just the stats that go up. On the other hand, the stats going up might be very helpful or useful because her survivability, I don't know, it's kind of meh to me. She has the Hold Ground, she has the kind of Vigor Stun armor, which is good with the 50% damage reduction, but Hold Ground and this kind of healing on ally turn, yes, she is super strong against sleep and stun. If she runs with other storm units, then that kind of stun and potentially sleep immunity, not cursed sleep though, if no water units are on the enemy team, is good. But does she really bring enough to the table? She's not really all that big on damage dealing. Yes, she has that one very powerful skill, but in that skill, the kind of execute mechanic I think is really meh. 25% chance, yeah, it's nice, but it's not reliable, And also I'm a bit concerned about her AI, if she really is optimized to make the right choices. I would like her to use the first skill before using her strong other skill, given that it gives her the turn anyways and prepares the field basically for her, and then also of course the kind of instant skill action. And given that the 3rd and 4th skill are so restricted in terms of how many times they can be used, 6 and 5 times respectively, I'm just a tiny bit concerned that this AI is not doing her enough favors, although in terms of hate level it seems rather low unless she gets a kill. So that might help her a little bit in surviving longer and staying helpful on the battlefield, but she is, all things considered, still absolutely helpless versus burn teams. She brings pretty much nothing to the table against them, despite being stun immune if she has other storm allies on the battlefield. The low time units on burn teams will be a problem for her. The only slight hope there is with new Anya that disables some of these burn units, that they get above 50 time units at least, so the Divine Lightning deals a little bit more damage and can potentially take out some units behind guards like Cerberus. All in all, I can only recommend full Awakening for Storm stun teams, or for Veil teams of course. Burn and sleep teams should pretty much skip this unit unless you wanna use her rather far away from your main units. All other teams can consider getting one copy for that entry effect, with the hope that she survives long enough to use this multiple times, although I wouldn't get my hopes up too much. I have to say I'm not sure if anybody else feels this way, but I am a bit disappointed by this batch of units from the current event. Zoro is the best starter of the bunch, Kirin is the best entry, but none of these three, including Dark Kaguya, have top tier potential in my eyes. On the other hand, this is also a positive, or can be seen as a positive, given that the power creep is something we have to keep an eye on, so having a bit of a dud event in between can be nice as well. And this is not to say that these three units are bad in any scenario. They have their place, they can do some good stuff. I think I like Zoro best personally of the three, but only well protected and fully awakened. Kirin for me looks more like a very good pull for that kind of entry effect, even at one copy. That's it, hope you enjoyed this analysis. Leave a like if you did. Make sure to subscribe to become a true carrot. And as always, thanks for watching.